And the Minister of Commerce had said that negotiators had constructive talks and the tariffs would be removed in phases as progress is made. Our next guest represents a state where manufacturers are feeling the pinch from those tariffs, and he's working for bipartisan legislation that would give Congress more power to curtail the president's use of tariffs. We welcome now Senator Tom Carper. He's Democrat of Delaware, back to Bloomberg. He joins us from Capitol Hill. So, Senator, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Have you heard anything about this possible rollback in a Phase 1 deal?
I have not. When listening to you talking about this rollback, possible rollback, I'm a recovering governor. Every week I visit businesses large and small in Delaware. I always ask, what can we do to help you? And among the things they always say is provide some certainty and predictability. So if we can get some certainty and predictability on this front, that's a good thing. Having said that, we should have never pulled out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership in the first place. We were part of a 12-nation trading deal, as you know. We were leading it, but China was on the outside because of the bad behavior. That's where we should have stayed. We should have never gotten out of it, and why this administration pulled us out in order to play this game of tariff wars. It's just crazy. It's just foolish.
Give us a sense of how it is affecting your constituents in Delaware. I've seen some accounts of you sitting down and meeting with manufacturing companies and getting it firsthand from them how it's affecting them. Give us a sense of what it's doing to Delaware.
Yeah, well, I recall one conversation with one particular manufacturer who said, tell us what the rules are going to be. Give us some flexibility and leave us alone. And as it turns out, we aren't doing that. We're not telling what the rules are going to be. It's not clear if they're going to have these tariffs, or they're going to be on or off. They need certain predictability. And this administration, if we're going to make a deal with China, hopefully a good deal, having screwed up on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, let's make it. Let's make it and stop just messing around and just screwing with people.
So let's turn now, we're talking with Senator Tom Carper of Delaware. Let's turn now to the subject of health care, very much on the national agenda. Certainly in the 2020 election, as we've listened to the Democratic debates, there's this apparent division within the Democratic Party about Medicare for all on the one hand, as opposed to an enhanced form of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. I talked to Nancy Pelosi on Friday, and she quite specifically said she was not a fan of health care for all. This is part of what she had to say, Senator.
I'm not a big fan of Medicare for all. I mean, I welcome the debate. I think that we should have health care for all. I think that the Affordable Care benefit is better than the Medicare benefit.
So Senator Carper, where are you on Medicare for all? Where are the people of Delaware?
Well, I was one who helped write parts of the Affordable Care Act. I think it's good, and rather than spending the last several years trying to destroy it, if we'd been spending that time trying to make it better in a bipartisan way, we'd be better off than people in this country. We'd be a lot better off. The idea of the exchanges is actually originally a Republican idea. It's a good idea, and instead of trying to kill it, why do we make it work? We're seeing prices in the exchanges for premiums in the exchanges leveling off in the current year. In the year to come, I think in like 30 or some states, the premiums are coming down. In Delaware and about 6 other states, premiums in the exchanges are coming down by double-digit rates. And so rather than killing it, we ought to figure out how to make it work. And we're beginning to see insurers coming back into the exchanges, more competition that'll help bring down prices even further. So that's how I feel about it. The idea of Medicare for all, what we agree on as Democrats, we agree on this, access to affordable health care for everybody. That's like the principle we agree on. The policies, we have disagreement, and we have an honest disagreement. And what we need to do is work that out. And I'm not sure how you pay for Medicare for all. I think Elizabeth Warren has indicated how she would pay for it. But we have a situation right now where we got half of our people in this country get health care from their employers, a quarter get their health care from Medicaid, about 15% get their coverage from Medicare, and the rest are looking for coverage in places like the exchanges. That's not a bad system, and if we want to do is like a single payer, add that to the mix. I think that makes sense as well. But right now we're running out of money in Medicare, running out of money. And we're going to run out of money altogether in the next decade. And then, so we need to keep that in mind as well. And we have a huge budget deficit. It's $850 billion last year. Looking at $1 trillion this next year. We have to be mindful of the cost. And what we're finally showing in the exchange is a good idea that if you actually let it work, it'll work and it'll provide care to people who need it. And it's affordable, increasingly affordable.
We're speaking with Senator Tom Carper, Democrat of Delaware. Let's talk about that 2020 election just for a minute. As I understand, you've endorsed former Vice President Joe Biden. Are you concerned that he's not making the headway that some would have liked, particularly in Iowa right now? The most recent polls show him fourth or even worse.
I think the polling that I've looked at, the national polling and the state-by-state polling, indicates that in the states that we worry most about, the battleground states, where include Wisconsin and Michigan, Minnesota, others, Pennsylvania, Joe Biden does very well. And my hope is in the end, I was just out in Iowa about a month ago with my wife. We were received very warmly. There's a lot of people who like him, and we were in the western part of the state. But he's trying to be everywhere, and you can't be in every single state. And he's been there so many times over the years, and my hope is he'll do well there. I think we need somebody who can not just unite our party. We need that. We need somebody who can beat Trump. We need somebody who can unite our country. Somebody who can restore standing in the world to the rest of the world. And I just think Joe Biden does all those things very well. Maybe, I think, better than any of the other candidates. And I know a bunch of them pretty well and think well of them.
Senator, I want to close on a subject you and I have talked about before. I want to come back to infrastructure, because there was a time when President Trump was talking about it a lot, the leadership on the Hill were talking about it a lot, and now I don't hear anything about it at all. Where are we on infrastructure? How did it get sort of dropped off the side of the table?
The transportation infrastructure for roads, highways, bridges in the Senate belongs in the jurisdiction of not one, not two, not three, but 4 committees. The committee that John Barrasso of Wyoming and I lead, the Environment and Public Works Committee, focuses on surface transportation. We passed unanimously a reauthorization bill, $287 billion over the next 5 years. Our bill is out. We're waiting for the Banking Committee, which works on transit, to do their piece. We're waiting for the Commerce Committee, which does safety, does rail, some airlines. We're waiting for them to do their piece. And then we're looking for the Finance Committee, on which I serve, to actually figure out how to pay for all this. So what we've tried to do in our committee, Environment and Public Works Committee, is lead by example. My hope is the other. And I'm literally meeting with members, Democrats and Republicans from the other committees, to say, this is what we've done, and it's important that you join us and not just leave us out there, but join the parade.
Okay, Senator, really delight to have you on as always. That's Senator Tom Carper. He's a Democrat from Delaware, joining us from Capitol Hill. Coming up here, we're going to continue on that theme of infrastructure. Infrastructure Week, it was supposed to be the retrain that began a joke. I'm sorry, it's supposed to be the refrain that began a joke for the number of times the bipartisan policy push got derailed. But the problems remain. We talk with American Water CEO Susan Story about them next. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
The holidays arrive, and with it, the familiar patterns of the season. Ritual cheer, the holiday herds,
San Francisco has been canceled.
and migratory flights. But this season, a more thrilling alternative is calling. Defy the laws of human nature at the Season of Audi sales event.
Get exceptional offers on the Audi you've always wanted during the Season of Audi sales event. Visit your local Tri-State Audi dealer today or AudiOffers.com for more information.
At CDW, we get that working from the road can be difficult and lonely.
I know. I just had a long conversation at the toll booth.
So?
It was unmanned.
Well, at least you can connect and be productive with a secure Dell Latitude 2-in-1 laptop. They're reliable with all-day battery life and part of a business-class mobility solution implemented by CDW.
Wait, don't go.
IT orchestration by CDW. People who get it. Find out more at cdw.com/Dell.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm Greg Jarrett. It's time for a check of top business stories. Stocks have climbed to new highs after reports that China and the U.S. have agreed to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a trade deal. 10-year Treasury yields hit a 14-week high while gold is down. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500's up 0.5%, up 16. The Dow's up 0.9%, up 244. And the Nasdaq's up 0.7%, up 60. 10-year is currently down 1 with a yield of 1.96%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 2.1%. At $57.53 a barrel, while COMEX gold's down 1.9% at $14.65.30 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.47, the euro $1.10.43, and the euro is also there. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett. Now more Balance of Power with David Weston on Bloomberg Radio.
This is Balance of Power Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. 2020 presidential campaigns are ramping up, and Facebook is looking to take steps to avoid some of the issues that gave it a black eye last time there was an election. Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg spoke with Bloomberg's Caroline Hyde at the Bloomberg Year Ahead Summit earlier today.
We think the 2020 election is a massive test for us. And it should be. You know, elections have changed. We've changed as a company. If you look back to 2016, of course we were prepared for state actors, but what they really did was hack in and take information. This new, more insidious, right, false stuff, we were totally unprepared. We never thought of it. We missed it. Everyone missed it. That's different now. Now we really work hard to find what we think of as coordinated, inauthentic behavior. State actors, groups of people that are trying to do fake stuff. In 2016, we had never heard of this. In 2017, we took down 1. In the last year, we took down 50, 7 in the last 2 weeks alone. So we're in a very different place. We are going after fake accounts. Every single thing that happened from the IRA on Facebook in 2016 was done through a fake account. We are now able to take down millions every day, most before anyone sees them. Misinformation. We didn't have a fact-checking program at all in 2016. Now, if something is marked false by our third-party fact-checkers, we can really reduce distribution, and we can show related articles so people see the other side of the story. And some really good independent studies have reported that fake news on Facebook is definitely on the decline. I think the Stanford study said it gone down by more than half since 2016. And transparency.
Yeah.
You know, this is really important. In 2016, you could only see any ad on Facebook targeted at you. When you went to a page, you didn't know who was behind that page. Now, we have an ads library, so you can see anything that anyone is showing anyone in terms of political ads.
People and I using that? People in intrigue?
They are, definitely. And journalists use it, right? And they punch against it and write stories. We're running red team operations. So we have a red team that's always looking for what will the bad guys try to do next and try to get ahead of it. And so this is a major test for us. Now we're building on, I think, some success. 2018, the midterms, we were very focused. From everything we know sitting today, they went very well. EU parliamentary elections. We've had lots of elections since then, but we know that this is a big one, and this is the highest priority for the next year.
That was Facebook's Sheryl Sandberg speaking earlier today with Bloomberg's Caroline Hyde. Well, the question really is, does Facebook's biggest concern line up with its users? Is it politics or is it privacy? We'll talk about that next. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and on radio.
Excited.
It's another Thursday afternoon, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and explore tropical rainforests. Fly from London Gatwick to Costa Rica with British Airways from £218 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Television and Radio. I'm David Weston. Before the break, we heard how Facebook is focusing on avoiding problems with political speech and with advertising. But others are still focused on how it's handling the privacy of those who go online, something the FTC has looked at more than once and fined Facebook for more than $5 billion just last July. Welcome now, Jennifer Rhee. She's Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Analyst for Antitrust Litigation. So, Jennifer, I'm really curious about what the FTC knew and didn't know, because there has been some leaked documents now involving involving Facebook and privacy that are sort of bad documents. Did the FTC know about those when it imposed its fine?
You know, I'm assuming they did. We don't know because the FTC is really going to be much quieter about what they're seeing. They're going to maintain the confidentiality of their investigations. But when they fined Facebook $5 billion earlier this year, it was pursuant to a long investigation, and their investigations are thorough. So I have to, and these are the kinds of documents they would have asked for in a civil investigative demand, which is like a subpoena. So I have to assume they probably did see these, and they may have even weighed into this penalty.
At the same time, Facebook has not always been forthcoming in discovery because now there are reports going out of California where there are state actions pending where people are complaining, you're not really responding to our document requests very promptly.
Right, so that's an investigation. So the Attorney General of California is seeking the help of the court, basically just to enforce a California state subpoena. And what they're saying is that the response was just simply inadequate or just incomplete. And I think, David, you were a lawyer, you know that these things happen, these skirmishes happen. Big companies do everything they can to protect the privacy of the emails of the executives and others, and so they're going to make arguments that these aren't relevant or they're protected by privilege, and sometimes you have to resort to courts to decide.
And that's a good legal argument.
Yes.
But there are times that you can win the legal argument and lose in the court of public opinion.
Yeah,
and right now, the notion that Facebook is coming in and saying we got to protect the privacy of our executives, when the question is, have you protected the privacy of those millions and millions of users? That's a hard one from the court of public opinion standpoint.
I agree. I think it's a disconnect. I mean, it's really a disconnect. But, they're lawyers, they're a big company, and I think to the extent there are actions against them on privacy, on antitrust, they're going to fight it tooth and nail. They're going to fight it to the end, and that includes objecting to these broad subpoenas and trying to get them narrowed down. And we also don't know what the argument is on the subpoena. Perhaps those requests are very broad, and Facebook has a good argument.
In the meantime, we don't know what Congress is or is not going to do. We had all those hearings for Congress, and they really haven't taken much action, have they?
Well, Congress has been collecting documents, too. So the thing is, it takes some time. I know people want things to move quickly, and everybody says this is going to be expeditious. But I think Congress has probably seen these documents, too. And above anything else, I think these documents are going to harm Facebook on the antitrust side.
Okay, many thanks to Jennifer Reed from Bloomberg Intelligence. She's our antitrust guru, we call her. Okay, we're going to switch gears now from social media to infrastructure. Remember all that talk about infrastructure in the early days of the Trump administration? We don't seem to hear much about it anymore. But that doesn't mean that the issue has gone away. American Waterworks is the largest, most geographically diverse, publicly traded water utility in the nation. Welcome now its CEO, Susan Story, for today's Conversation in Chief. So welcome back, Susan. We've talked about this issue before.
Yes, David.
And I just saw somebody sent me something as American Society of Civil Engineers rates overall our infrastructure, not just water, but infrastructure, at a D+. Are we making any progress?
We are making progress, but not quickly enough. Most of the investment, especially in water and wastewater, took place in the 1940s and 50s following World War II. So it's coming end of life, and a lot of cities and municipalities simply don't have the money to invest in their infrastructure. They're busy funding pensions, and they're busy with firefighters, police officers, building schools, all the important things that cities have to do.
So tell us how your company fits into that, because you largely, I think, are state-controlled utilities, and you just deliver water and you take care of wastewater. Do you build the infrastructure, or does the city or the state build the infrastructure?
So our business model is we are a regulated utility, similar to electrics and gas. We are regulated by state public service commissions. We invest the money ourselves. We have excellent access to capital markets. American Water is S&P A credit rated. This year alone, we will invest about $1.7 billion just in infrastructure in our service area of water and wastewater. And then when you look at the municipal systems that we're buying because they're distressed, we're buying 19. That's another $200 million we're projecting just this year.
So you have access to the capital markets. You put the money in, but you have to get the money back. You have to get a return on your investment. Are the regulators open to you passing along some of the costs to the rate holders, the ratepayers?
They are, David, because water is a critical human need. So in terms of water supply, and we've seen states where that's been an issue, water quality, the issue of emerging contaminants, no one wants to be the next city that has had problems with their water quality, and water infrastructure is very key. So we're investing. We also are seeing an increased need for resiliency investment. What I mean by that, in the Northeast, as you know, the past 10 to 12 years, we've had 6 100-year floods. We're building our systems now to 500-year floodplain specifications. So we've got to get this right before we are faced with flooding or hurricanes or ice storms.
We're talking with Susan Story. She's the CEO of American Waterworks. You mentioned about contaminants in water. We obviously have the Flint story. My hometown actually is Flint, Michigan, but also Newark. We've had and various other places. How bad a problem is that?
So, interestingly, there are 144 million chemicals registered globally, and every 2.5 seconds they're breaking down into substances, some of which we don't know what they are. We can't regulate all of those. The EPA regulates 100. We must have more and more research into how do we deal with these contaminants. At our company, we have an R&D group with 15 scientists. We're using artificial intelligence and machine learning to start doing predictive profiles of chemicals and biologics so that we can stop any type of contamination event before it ever happens.
So we may not be catching up the way we should on the infrastructure investment, but your company specifically has been doing pretty well financially. You're doing all right. How much of that is because of an increased awareness of environmental, social, governance issues, the so-called ESG?
That is a great point. Actually, even though we're a U.S. company, around 28% of our stock is owned by international investors. This year alone, I've done 4 international investor trips by demand. Typically, I do 1 or 2, and it's because these ESG principles are so strong, and to have a regulated utility that has a highly sustainable image and scores very highly in ESG there's a lot of demand from an investor standpoint for that.
So you know this area so terribly well, unlike most of the rest of us. What needs to be done, and who needs to do it to really have us catch up to where we need to be in infrastructure? Is it federal? Is it state? Is it local? Is it private enterprise? How do we get there?
It's all of the above, David. Water and sanitation services are so critical. One particular group can't make these solutions. So we're working with federal agencies, we're working with state governments, we're working with local municipalities. We share a lot of our research. We're partnering with EPA and Centers for Disease Control to say, here are the key issues. PFAS, for example. There's not just lead. A lot of press about PFAS, the chemicals that once they get into the body can't get rid of them. So we need to find solutions and treatment that then everyone can utilize.
So give us a sense of how concentrated your business is. As I say, you're the largest, most geographically diverse. How big is the second largest? Is this a few large players nationally, or are there a lot of smaller companies?
Investor-owned water utilities, there are only 8. Investor-owned, we are half the whole market size of the entire 8. The next largest water utility is a little less than 2 times or a little more than 2 times our size, and the rest are 3 to 4 billion market cap and below.
You said investor-owned. So if you take the whole marketplace, investor-owned and publicly owned, what percentage are investor-owned?
So investor-owned are about 15% of water and 2% of wastewater. Municipals run 84% of water, and they run 98% of wastewater at this point.
To what extent is regulation helping or hurting you? Because we know that there's a clean water case that was just argued yesterday in the Supreme Court, and the Trump administration wants to dial back on some of the regulation. Is that helpful to you from your point of view?
We are advocates for strong water quality standards, and what we have found with the Environmental Protection Agency is there's a lot of support for us to keep those water standards up in terms of drinking water.
Fascinating. What's your biggest challenge?
Biggest challenge always is making sure that there's not a contamination event and that we are at the forefront of cyber protection.
It's great to have you here, Susan. Always is good to have you here. That is Susan Story. She is the president of American Water Company, and she's going to continue this on the second hour of Balance of Power. We're going to be over on Bloomberg Radio. This is Balance of Power, and we are on Bloomberg Television and Radio. Besides Susan Story, we're also going to have the CEO of CVS, who had their earnings out and did rather well this week. That's coming up in the second hour of Balance of Power. It's on Bloomberg Television and Radio, live from New York.
This is a Bloomberg Pursuits look at luxury. What would you do if you were asked to perform on stage in front of 20,000 people in the buff? To get in fighting shape for his debut at the Metropolitan Opera, countertenor Anthony Roth Costanzo developed E-Pulse, a short, super effective workout to tone and strengthen fast. And you can use it too. The technology uses an electric suit that shocks muscles as you work out, doubling or tripling the impact of a workout in as little as 20 minutes. In China, drinkers love a fine wine, as long as it's not Chinese. But elite foreign producers such as France's Lafite are seeing the results of local vineyard investment. Chinese wine demand is projected to grow to $17.3 billion by 2021. Perhaps they could do like American advertisers and turn to an influencer for help. Paid social media influencing has become such a part of life that 86% of young Americans aged 13 to 38 want to become one. This group already trusts influencers more than celebrities and athletes when it comes to product endorsements. I'm Andrew O'Day, Bloomberg Radio.
Intellectual property, one of the most valuable things we market in Asia.
I understand you're trying to rival the likes of San Francisco, New York.
We have our own brand of intellectual property.
Let's focus first on this U.S.-China trade story.
Find out why it's so valuable.
Do you need to see substance in an agreement or just that they stop shouting at each other?
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia, tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
Only you can prevent wildfires.
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seizechange.
From the financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all climbing to records after reports that China and the United States have agreed to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a trade deal. 10-year Treasury yields hitting a 14-week high. Right now, the 10-year is at 1.95%. Gold is declining the most in 6 weeks. Gold now lower by 1.8%, $14.63 the ounce. But the S&P at a record. Tech and financial shares leading the charge. S&P up 17 at 3,094, up 0.6%. The Dow also at a record, surging 259 points, 27,751, up 0.9%. NASDAQ up 61, a gain there of 0.7%. The stocks rally, some notable exceptions. Shares of online travel agencies tumbling after Expedia and TripAdvisor reported results that missed expectations and raised concerns over the prospect of competition from Google. Expedia plunging 25.9%. TripAdvisor is lower now by 20.1%. Qualcomm last night gave a stronger than predicted forecast for the current quarter. Qualcomm shares rallying now by 7.7%. Ralph Lauren rallying almost 13% after the apparel maker reported same-store sales growth across its 3 regions, including in the key North American market. The company says it does see ongoing unrest in Hong Kong limiting sales gains. West Texas Intermediate crude oil rallying 2.5%, $57.75 a barrel. Brent crude up 1.7%, now at $62.78. So again, recapping, U.S. equity markets trading at records. S&P up 17, up 0.6%. It is 1:02 on Wall Street. Time now for the Market Drivers Report with a focus on American depository receipts. Here is Dave Wilson.
Thanks, Charlie. ADRs are higher. They're not quite as much as U.S. shares. The S&P ADR index is up about 0.5%, and the S&P 500 is up about 0.6%. China's Baidu has climbed 12.8% in U.S. trading. The online search services revenue for the third quarter fell less than analysts expected in a Bloomberg survey, and earnings beat projections. Baidu's streaming video site iQIYI also reported third quarter results, and its ADRs are up 14.1%. Now, Luxembourg-based ArcelorMittal has risen 9.5%. The steelmaker's third quarter earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, also known as EBITDA, were higher than analysts predicted. And Israel's Teva Pharmaceutical has gained 7.4%. The generic drug maker raised the low end of forecast ranges for this year's profit and revenue. Third quarter results were in line with projections. Now, Canada's Kinross Gold has lost 14.7%. The gold miner posted third quarter revenue that trailed estimates. Other miners are also lower as the precious metals price falls. Canada's Barrick Gold is down 4.1%, and South Africa's Gold Fields is down 7.3%, Charlie.
All right, we thank you very much, Dave Wilson. Following those American depository receipts among the many companies reporting earnings after the close of trading today, the Walt Disney Company will be all over that as it breaks. Shares up now by 1.1%. Recapping stocks at a record, S&P up 17, up 0.6%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Balance of Power.
We have the strongest economy by far in the world.
We're going to grow our trade relationship.
I know what's broken. I know how to fix it.
Where the world of politics meets the world of business.
Pure and Pure have an edge on the market this year.
We've got now a real crunch few days for Brexit.
We want certainty in the markets. We want certainty in our trading relationships.
The administration is trying to create a new divided world.
Balance of Power with David Weston on Bloomberg Radio.
China signals a possible deal to roll back tariffs in stages. The quid pro quo may have been about more than just payments to Ukraine. And women take center stage in corporate America at a big event today in New York. Welcome to the second hour of Balance of Power. The Women's Forum of New York held its breakfast of corporate champions this morning in New York, honoring 323 companies with at least 30% women on their boards. But one company and its CEO was singled out with the Muriel Siebert Leadership Award. The winner is American Water CEO Susan Story, and I'm pleased to say she's still with us. So thank you for staying with us here, Susan. Explain to me exactly what this initiative is and why did you and your company win this award?
So the Corporate Champions Breakfast was started in 2011 by Janice Ellig, and the purpose was to promote women in the boardroom. So at that time, the average percent of women in the boardroom was less than 15%. So they set a goal to recognize companies, Fortune 1000 or S&P 500, with at least 20%. This year, it was 30% and above.
So what is the overall percentage of women on boards? You said it was 15%. Where is it now?
So for all companies, it was 23.5%.
23.5%. Right. So that's up from 15%.
Absolutely. Yes.
So that's real progress.
It is. It is.
But it's not making that 30% bar.
Exactly. And so today we recognized 323 companies that were 30% or above. 91 of those were 40% female representation or above, and 26 were 50% or above or had actually achieved gender parity.
Does the 30%, is it a risk of it becoming a ceiling as well as a floor?
It is, and that's interesting. It's that, well, we've got 3 women, or we have 30%. So, hey, it was a joke at the breakfast this morning as a mathematician said, I don't really think 30% is parity. So it's looking at making sure if women constitute 50% of customers, 50% of the population, should we have 50% on boards?
Susan, do you see that percentage of women on the board as it goes up have effect on the C-suite? I mean, you don't have a problem with the C-suite. Obviously, you're a woman as a CEO. You have, I believe, a CFO who's female. You don't seem to have a problem in your C-suite. But overall, are you seeing any movement in the C-suite?
We are, but it is slower. And David, that is a great recognition. So I think we're making more progress on boards. I know we are than we are in the C-suite. Just look at CEOs. If you look at the S&P 500, only 26 of the CEOs are female. In the Fortune 500, 37 are female. So that is far less percent than the 1 out of every 4 women that are on corporate boards.
One of the things, Susan, we hear time and again is that actually if you look at the performance of companies, the performance is better on average if you have more women in leadership positions. If that's true, why don't companies do it just to make more money? Quite apart from the rightness of it.
Well, you're right. It doesn't make any sense. And you're absolutely correct. Study after study shows that companies that have women in the executive suite, that have a good balance, that understand their customers better, actually do better financially. We were recognized American Water today, and we have over 50% women on our board. 3 of the 4 committees are headed by women. We were included in the Bloomberg Gender Equality Index this year, as well as the NAACP's initial inaugural Equity and Empowerment Index, as well as the Disability Equity Index with a 100% perfect score. But then people say, well, what are you doing for shareholders? Our 1-year TSR of American Water through September 30th was 44% compared to the S&P of a little over 4. Our 5-year TSR is 186% compared to 67% for the S&P. So you can actually do well by doing good.
You've made great progress, and you're seeing other people make real progress as well. Where is the resistance at this point, or is there resistance?
You know, I actually believe it is not blatant intentional resistance. I think it's more unconscious. I think we as humans get into this is how we've done things, and as we get boards or we get into a situation where we've got people who have been there for a while, it's difficult to change. It's human nature. But I think we have to step back, and you made the point, David, which is regardless of whether it's the right thing to do, which it is, it's the smart business decision. And those companies who don't do this are not going to be able to compete with the companies who do.
So from your experience, connect those two things up. On the one hand, closer to parity for women in the boardroom and the C-suite, and financial performance. How does it express itself? How does that get done? What are the steps in between? Why does it make it better from a business point of view?
So it's pretty basic. So financial results are not where you start, they're an outcome. Study after study, University of Michigan has shown that engaged employees basically lead to more satisfied customers. More satisfied customers lead to better business and better financials. So it kind of makes sense that if you start with the social factors around employees, you serve your customers, you help the communities, which makes employees want to work there and feel good about what they do. You know, there was a lot of controversy when the Business Roundtable came out with its statement of corporate purpose. And years ago, I heard the expression, the generosity of the word and the tyranny of the word or. Why would we think we have to focus on shareholders or employees, customers, communities? It is an and if you do those other things, employees, customers, and communities, the financials will follow.
What about the supply side of the equation? Are you finding qualified women, young or otherwise, that you can hire? I mean, whether it's business schools, where do you hire most of your sort of executives from at American Water?
So we have the gamut of frontline employees who don't have college degrees all the way to PhD scientists in our company. We're actually not having a trouble attracting women. But we have one scientist, and I said, why did you decide to come work for American Water? She said, I Googled and I saw people that look like me in the executive suite. So whether it's people of color, women, or men, people need to say, at this company, I see people like me at all levels, and I know I can get there.
Is there enough parity, as you put it, in academia? I mean, in your chemistry departments, in your professors, in the academia, is there enough parity to encourage women, for example, to seek PhDs in scientific studies?
I think that's a great point. So we know that the percent of women who are graduating from engineering school is far less than anything close to parity. It's about 25%. We know what we have to do as companies, we're sending our female engineers and scientists to middle schools. We've got to get kids in middle schools and high school excited about this, especially kids in economically distressed communities. We just built our new corporate headquarters in Camden, New Jersey, which is a highly economically distressed community. Our employees are spending a huge amount of time mentoring and coaching, trying to get them, including girls, excited about science and math.
Okay, thank you so much, Susan. It's really good to have you here. That's Susan Story of American Water. She's the CEO, and she's the recipient of this major leadership award just today here in New York. Coming up now, we're going to talk with another corporate CEO. He's Larry Merlo of CVS Health. We're going to talk with him of his company and the larger questions surrounding healthcare as we head into an election year where everyone's talking about healthcare. That's next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio.
Directors of companies are responsible to boards.
Let's begin with the IPO that may not be for a long, long time.
Politicians are mindful of voters.
Are those gains all going to the elite?
Scholars pay attention to data.
Does it spread beyond manufacturing?
And nearly everyone at the top of these professions listens to Bloomberg Surveillance.
Everybody listens when I'm on your show.
Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Open calendar. What's my schedule looking like?
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an emergency flash flood between Park and First Street.
What? No, that doesn't work. I'm busy then. Decline. Decline.
Floods don't exactly work around your schedule. Disasters don't plan ahead. But you can. It starts with talking to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. So don't wait. Communicate. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Did you know your favorite radio stations are in your pocket? Yes, the TuneIn app lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio anywhere you want. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen now to ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
On this week's On the Media,
we really need to start framing this differently.
The way we report the story of the California wildfires, like blaming the power company, obscures the underlying structural problems.
I despair that our contemporary politics can in any way deal with the challenge that this century presents us.
Don't miss this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast from WNYC Studios on TuneIn today.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane to the rim, throwing right corner three. Another one.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Records for the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ equities climbing to records after reports that China and the U.S. have agreed to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a trade deal. 10-year Treasury yields now at a 14-week high. We have got the 10-year, the yield there, 1.94%. S&P up 15 at 3,092, up 0.5%. The Dow rallying 242 points, up 0.9%. NASDAQ up 57, a gain of 0.7%. Gold down 1.7%, $14.64 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude oil rallying 2.4%, $57.69 a barrel. So again, trade optimism sparking a rally in U.S. equities. S&P up 15, a gain of 0.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thanks so much to Charlie Pellet. You're listening to Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio. CVS released its third quarter earnings earlier this week, and the stock rose on positive news pretty much right across the board. From its retail sales to its insurance business to its pharmaceutical benefits manager, that is Caremark. Welcome now, CVS Health President and CEO, Larry Merlo. Welcome, Larry. Good to have you here.
David, great to be here.
So take a victory lap. How'd you do it?
Well, listen, it's really the work of our 300,000 colleagues. They're working hard every day, and we've got a great strategy, and their efforts are driving these results and bringing our vision to life.
So start with the retail business, the bricks and mortar, as we might call it. Why is that up? Because bricks and mortar retail is sort of struggling in a lot of places across the country.
Well, David, as you think about our retail business, we have the pharmacy business, and then we have what we call the front of store. We saw nice growth in both components of that business, and we're picking up market share in the market, and innovation is becoming part of our DNA. Our retail teams are doing terrific things in terms of defining what omni-channel means for our customers. There may be a day I want to shop in the store. There may be a day I want to pick up my prescription through the drive-thru. There may be a day where it's more convenient for me to have it delivered to my home, my office, my mailbox, and through our partnership with UPS now through our drone to the driveway.
So you're doing well in CVS local stores right now. Take us out 5-10 years. Do you see that continuing, or will there be a smaller footprint? We see that in other places like banking, for example, with branches being shut down. Just because people are going online, there are different ways to do it. Do you see that for CVS?
Well, David, what we see is we're leading the evolution of the drugstore from what we know it to be today, to become more of a health destination. And, CVS started our health journey several years ago. It was 2014 where we eliminated the sale of tobacco products in terms of representing the broader reach that we wanted to have in health. And, as you look at some of the things that we're piloting, we call them health hubs. We started in Houston, Texas, and, it's not just about the pharmacy service we provide, the products that we sell. It's about other related health services, and the feedback that we've seen from customers has been terrific.
You mentioned tobacco. What about vaping? Where's CVS on vaping?
Well, David, we have never carried the vaping products, and look, we started a few years back a commitment that we call Be the First. It's our goal of creating the first tobacco-free generation. We've worked with community partners like the Cancer Society to encourage college campuses to be tobacco-free is just one example. And we're shifting some of that focus to the dangers that vaping is creating among school-age children. You look at the stats, it's extremely alarming. 78% of the kids who start to vape will begin to use tobacco products before they finish school. And in many respects, the progress that we've made over the years, it's taking us backwards.
CVS is something of an integrated health platform at this point as you merged with Aetna, the insurance company. Is that going as well as you'd hoped? Better than you'd hoped? Not quite as well? Where are you?
Well, David, later this month, we're going to celebrate our first anniversary as one company, and the first year has been terrific. The integration of our two companies has gone, extremely well, and we're beginning to get our proof points in terms of the strategy and the vision coming to life, through our health hubs as one example, but, our goal of making healthcare local and meeting people where they are, whether it's in the community, in their home, or the palm of their hand. And the opportunities that we have to make healthcare more simple and easy to use and navigate, and what we refer to as our North Star, how we can help people achieve their best health and in doing so reduce overall healthcare costs.
To what extent are you seeing cross-selling or overlap so that somebody who's getting an Aetna insurance policy is also shopping at a CVS and maybe is using Caremark?
Well, David, we think that there's a big opportunity there in terms of, the role of the insurer and, the information that, they know about what is the next best health action for the members that I'm serving. And you think about the community assets that are resident within CVS and the opportunity to, bring those two together to help people on their path to better health. And the early returns have been very satisfying.
Let's talk about the pharmaceutical benefit managers, because, as you know, some people on Capitol Hill don't like them very much. At least there's been some pretty hostile hearings about that. I think you said in your earnings call you think that increasingly the focus will be on the list prices of the manufacturers rather than the PBMs. Why do you say that?
Well, Dave, there's been a lot of discussion, as you pointed out, about the role of the PBMs over the last couple of years. And, encouraging for us is the data tells a very different story. The data is quantifying the value that PBMs bring to the marketplace in terms of, reducing drug costs for plan sponsors and the members that they serve. And consumers see those whether it's in what we call point-of-sale discounts at the pharmacy counter or in lower insurance premiums on a monthly basis. And, as we sit here today, we see that data, validates the important role that PBMs play, and it shifts the dialogue and the discussion back to, well, exactly what are pharmaceutical manufacturers doing in establishing the list price of those products?
There's a lot of disagreement at the moment among Democrats running for president about how to approach health care, but one thing they seem to all agree on is we're going to save a lot of money by reducing prescription drug prices. Are they right, and how would that affect CVS's business?
Well, David, there's a lot of things that, as a company and, our PBM, things that it has done to, reduce the net price of pharmaceuticals. We talk a lot about the need to bring more transparency, and we've been doing some innovative things that, you look at, where does transparency around drug prices begin? It begins in the physician's office at the point of prescribing. And we've created a tool that gives the physician visibility to their patients' out-of-pocket costs. And what we're seeing is physicians are switching to lower-cost alternatives about 40% of the time. And
that's interesting.
The average savings per prescription is about $90. So it's a good example, and there's more work that we're doing.
Larry, thank you so much. That's Larry Merlo. He is the CVS Health CEO. Remember the Dreamers? Well, they're before the Supreme Court next week. We're going to talk with Greg Storr, our Supreme Court reporter, about that case being heard next week. That's next on Balance of Power, and we are on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. U.S. stocks are posting record highs amid China trade optimism. The Dow is up 238 points, S&P 500 up 0.5%, the Nasdaq climbing 0.7%. But shares of online travel agencies fell today after Expedia and TripAdvisor reported results that missed expectations and raised concerns over the prospects of competition from Google. Expedia Group had its biggest one-day plunge in more than 6 years, and TripAdvisor had its biggest one-day percentage loss in its history. California utility PG&E is expecting $6.3 billion in after-tax costs from those wildfires, the recent blackouts, and its Chapter 11 case. The company's power lines have been blamed for starting several of the fires. Donna Wilson, Bloomberg Radio.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
the Bloomberg Business of Sports podcast.
How did the Yankees become this mega valuable team?
Where the money is flowing inside sports around the globe.
From the marketing perspective, where are the dollars spent?
From union heads to team owners, Scott Soshnick and Michael Barr speak to the names that power this multi-billion-dollar industry.
Boston Red Sox CEO Sam Kennedy.
National Hockey League Commissioner Gary Bettman.
Bloomberg Business of Sports. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
It's another Thursday evening, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and enjoy stunning white sand and crystal blue sea. Fly from London Gatwick to the Maldives with British Airways from £300 each way based on a return fare. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and be unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Should we go halves?
I'll get this. Let me just get my card, which was in my pocket.
You can't control awkward first dates. But if you temporarily misplace your debit card, you can freeze and unfreeze it on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. You can only freeze some transaction types. T's and C's apply.
Don't forget to book Butlins, Joe.
Already done, Stace. This year and next.
Gosh, we might as well just move in there.
For an exciting family break to Butlins, book online now. There's so much included in the price.
This is someone making an online booking at Ford.co.uk using the words Ford20 so they can service their Ford for £20 less. And this is someone who didn't get their Ford serviced. You see, at Ford, we use Ford genuine parts and Ford trained technicians. Plus, if you quote Ford20 when you book with us online, you can receive £20 off. Book now at Ford.co.uk or visit your local participating dealer. Ford service. No one knows your Ford better.
Retail customers only. At participating Ford dealers. Cannot be used with other promotions. T's and C's apply. Search Ford Service for more information.
Want to know what's happening in right now? The latest headlines are just a tap away with Fox News Talk on TuneIn. When news breaks, get up-to-the-minute coverage on developing stories from around the world. Plus, hear all the Fox shows you watch on your TV. Listen to Fox News Talk around the clock on TuneIn.
Hi, this is Brian Weber, host of NFL First and Goal every Sunday, kicking off at 1 Eastern only on TuneIn Premium. Be sure to listen this Sunday for the ultimate football fan experience, featuring 7 hours of commercial-free coverage of every scoring play around the NFL.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Next time you look up at the stars, think about this.
Inside you are the remains of a stellar explosion. You are made of stardust. And without the stars, there wouldn't be us.
I'm Guy Raz, the wonders of the universe and the people who still look up every night. Next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
Bloomberg Studio in New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Balance of Power with David Weston.
Coming up on Balance of Power, we talk about the Supreme Court review of the scope of the Clean Water Act with my colleague June Grasso. But first, let's get a market check with Charlie Pellet.
And I thank very much David Weston. Stocks higher across the board. We're looking at records, developing story, headlines breaking on the Bloomberg Professional Service. Sources tell Bloomberg Saudi Arabia is negotiating commitments from its wealthiest citizens to buy stock in the Aramco initial public offering. They include the Olayan family and Prince Al-Walid bin Talal to low-profile tycoons in the oil producer's backyard. Sources say the billionaire Olayans, who own a major stake in Credit Suisse, are considering buying several $100 million worth of Aramco shares. Equities climbing to records after reports that China and the U.S. have agreed to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a trade deal. 10-year Treasury yields are hitting a 14-week high, gold declining the most in 6 weeks. The Labor Department reports jobless claims dropped to a 4-week low of 211,000. And with more, here's Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
2019 has been a banner year for the labor market despite weakness in manufacturing and international trade. Jobless claims hit a half-century low in April, and the unemployment rate is hovering at levels not seen since the 1960s. The number of job openings nationwide tops the number of unemployed by more than 1 million. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
Tough day for a lot of those online travel services. Expedia, for example, after earnings plunging 26.1%. TripAdvisor, its shares moving lower now by 21.4%. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all at records. Gold down 1.6%, $14.66 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 2.1%, $57.55 a barrel. The Dow up 231, up 0.8%. S&P up 14, up 0.5. NASDAQ up 52, a gain there of 0.6%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Balance of Power continues, the Thursday edition. Once again, here is your host, David Weston.
Thank you so much to Charlie Pellet. The Supreme Court yesterday heard oral argument in an important case interpreting the Clean Water Act. At issue is whether a water treatment plant needs a permit to discharge wastewater that eventually makes its way to the ocean, but only after passing underground where it mixes with groundwater. To take us through it, welcome now my colleague, June Grasso, and our Supreme Court reporter, Greg Storr. So, Greg, it feels like a sort of narrow case, but it could affect a lot of people, and it comes down to what the meaning of from is.
Yeah, it could be very important for, say, like a mining operation or a large-scale animal feeding operation. Anything that might potentially dump pollutants into the ground, and when those pollutants make their way into a major waterway. The Clean Water Act says that the federal government can regulate discharges like that if they come from what's known as a point source, which is like a pipe or a ditch or some definable entity. And the question is, what happens if the pollutants don't go directly into a major waterway, but instead go underground first? And that can happen in an awful lot of contexts.
So Greg, from the oral argument, it's always dangerous to infer anything from oral argument, but is the court focusing specifically on things like legislative history, what Congress intended, or is it more, what are the possible ramifications? Because we could affect a lot of people here if we're not careful.
Yeah, this case was really a lot about the ramifications, and there were a lot of justices who seemed very concerned about both extremes. So, for example, Chief Justice John Roberts, who's one of the more conservative justices, was concerned about what happens if we say that the pollution has to go directly into, in this case, the ocean. Could somebody evade the federal regulatory regime just by having their pipe go a few inches or a few feet away from the ocean and having the water go underground instead of just dumping it directly in there? He was worried about that sort of extreme outcome. And on the other side, folks were worried about what happens if you say that anything that goes underground that makes its way to a major waterway is covered. Would that cover, for example, home septic systems? And could individuals then suddenly have this very burdensome federal regulation they have to deal with?
And Greg, it seemed like it was another case where the justices just weren't certain where to draw the line. But in this case, they didn't seem comfortable with the lines that either side told them about.
No, they sure didn't. And the sides included environmentalists who were suing the Maui County officials who were trying to stop the suit, and the Trump administration that was on the side of Maui, proposing slightly different tests from one another. The court was certainly, this is one of those cases where you say they're grappling, trying to figure out what to do. Justice Stephen Breyer, who's one of the more moderate justices, tried to suggest his own standard, which was that look for what he called the functional equivalent of directly discharging waste into the waterway. That didn't seem to go over very well with other people because they didn't know what that meant either. So it's really hard to predict how this particular case is going to come out, except that, as we were saying, the court does seem to want to avoid an extreme outcome either way.
There was something unusual, at least it seemed from the transcript, that Chief Justice John Roberts and Justice Elena Kagan were going back and forth in a little dispute. Was there tension there?
There was not personal tension so much, more so that they seemed to view the case a little bit differently. Justice Kagan seemed to be much more sympathetic with the environmentalists, and in particular, there was a question. The lawyer for the environmentalists said the test should be something that's called proximate cause. The notion that it's not everything that goes into the ground necessarily is covered by the Clean Water Act, but if you can fairly trace something and blame it on a source, you can regulate it that way. And there was this concern that it would apply to, as I said, home septic systems. And Justice Kagan said, well, one of the reasons that it wouldn't apply to home septic systems is because you can't always trace it to an individual septic system. There are a lot of people. There could be 20 septic tanks, and you don't know who caused the pollution. So we're not going to make them get a permit for that. And the Chief Justice said, well, it's like an Agatha Christie novel then, where there's 20 people who shot a person and you don't know who actually is guilty of the murder. And so it was a kind of a sharp moment between the two of them. Ultimately, they may end up coming down in the same place. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, if we only had Hercule Poirot, we'd be all set. Okay, so let's turn from what was argued yesterday in the Clean Water and what's going to be argued next week, which is the Dreamers case. We haven't heard about the Dreamers recently. Tell us what's at stake here, because I'm a little confused, because as I understood it, President Obama, when he first put this into place, said I'm exercising my prosecutorial discretion, essentially, not to pursue these people. Doesn't the President of the United States, who's now Donald Trump, have the discretion to reverse that?
Yeah, you might think so, and it may turn out that he does. The problem for the president was as much the way they did it. When he announced, the administration announced they were going to try to end the DACA program, they said the reason is because it is illegal. That the President Obama never had the authority to do that. And some courts then jumped in and said, well, if it's your assessment that it's illegal, then we have the ability to second guess that judgment, and we actually don't think it was originally illegal. Since then, the Trump administration has given other reasons for trying to rescind the DACA program. They have just essentially said, we think it's a bad idea to block out such a large category of people. We're talking about, at this point, about 700,000 people who are shielded from deportation. So the Supreme Court could say, well, maybe your original reasons weren't necessarily correct, but these later reasons are sufficient, and we will let you, President Trump, go ahead and rescind what President Obama did.
And Greg, in this particular case, there are more amicus briefs than in almost any other case from companies and schools and labor unions. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, this case has certainly drawn a lot of attention. An awful lot of entities sued to challenge the rescission of DACA. So that included states, and included universities, labor unions, Microsoft. Was on a call with Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft, a few days ago. He was talking about how they have 66 employees at Microsoft who are DACA recipients. And if the Supreme Court were to let Trump rescind the DACA program, if he were to do so, the ability of those people to continue to work and to stay in the country could be in jeopardy. The preponderance of the briefs tend to be on that side of the case. There are many fewer people defending what the president is doing, but certainly as a political matter, there is some support for the president as well. It's going to be closely watched.
Okay, thank you so much. But to my colleague, June Grasso, and also to Greg Storr, who covers the Supreme Court for Bloomberg in Washington. Newly released transcripts of depositions in front of the House Intelligence Committee points that there may be more involved in the so-called quid pro quo. We're going to talk with our foreign policy reporter, Nick Wadhams. That's coming up next on Balance of Power, and we are on Bloomberg Radio.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us number 1 in client support, number 1 in firm leadership, number 1 in operational support, number 1 in compensation, number 1 in professional development support, and number 1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA/SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
Join us. This is the sound of Helen and Peter hiking to the fairy tale fortress high above the winter wonderland below. Or it would be, if they hadn't stopped at the first beer house they came to. There it is, Helen and Peter. There's your Incredible. Fly from London Gatwick to Salzburg from £29 each way. With British Airways, Incredible is within reach. Terms and conditions apply. Limited availability and dates. Fare quoted is each way based on a return. cba.com/Gatwick for details.
London. Switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Next time you look up at the stars, think about this.
Inside you are the remains of a stellar explosion. You are made of stardust. And without the stars, there wouldn't be us.
I'm Guy Raj, the wonders of the universe and the people who still look up every night. Next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR. You can subscribe to the TED Radio Hour on TuneIn.
The NBA is on TuneIn Premium.
He shoots it. It's good. It's a 1-point lead. They don't have a timeout.
Each week, TuneIn picks an NBA game you just can't miss.
You're off to Wiggins, straight away on the triple try. Bingo! He knocks it down at the buzzer.
The defending champions, Toronto Raptors, are in LA to take on the red-hot LA Lakers. Tip-off is at 9:30 p.m. Eastern this Sunday. Search NBA on TuneIn to follow your favorite NBA team today.
What if you could keep up with cable news even when you're on the go? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to MSNBC live without any commercial interruptions. All of the news, none of the ads. Listen live on TuneIn Premium today.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Pulled into the end zone.
and he's yanked in by alignment for the touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium. Today, hear the home and away call as the 4-5 Los Angeles Chargers visit the 4-4 Oakland Raiders at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
15-10, 5, touchdown Denver!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
This is not a commercial. This is a reminder. With TuneIn Premium, you could be listening to more music commercial-free. Get over 45 commercial-free music stations. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
Headlines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing. U.S. equities are at records after reports that China and the U.S. have agreed to roll back tariffs on each other's goods in phases as they work toward a trade deal. 10-year Treasury yields right now hitting a 14-week high. The 10-year down 30 seconds at yield 1.92%. S&P up 13 at 3,090. That is a record, up 0.4%. The Dow up 225 points, also a record, up 0.8. And NASDAQ up 51, a gain of 0.6%. Gold lower by 1.6%, $14.66 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude oil rallying 2.1%, $57.52 a barrel. Again, recapping equities higher. S&P up 13, up 0.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Balance of power continues. And once again, here is David Weston.
Thank you so much to Charlie Pellet. This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio. We're talking now about that impeachment inquiry going on Capitol Hill. Transcripts of testimony to the House Intelligence Committee released this week suggest that there may have been more being offered to Ukraine President Zelensky as part of an effort to make sure he investigated Vice President Biden's ties to the country. Here to take us through it, what we've learned so far, is Nick Wadhams. He is Bloomberg foreign policy reporter. So, Nick, welcome. There's a piece out on the Bloomberg today saying actually there may be a second thing involved, not just the offering of aid.
That's right. So what the testimony that's come out in the last few days through these transcripts and through some of the text messages that were released have really definitively shown is that while it's still murky that there was an explicit demand for a quid pro quo for military aid, what was clear was that the White House and people around President Trump wanted very specific commitments from Ukraine in order to secure a meeting between President Trump and the new Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. That was a meeting that was crucially important for the Ukrainians because of the status they felt it would confer on an untested and relatively inexperienced leader. But what we've seen from this testimony is really that folks around the president were not sure if it was the president himself, but certainly people around him were saying, listen, you're not going to get that meeting unless you promise to investigate 2016 and the Biden family.
So in a couple of steps here, first of all, you can't quantify it by dollars and cents the way you can the aid, but what you're suggesting is it could be as valuable in some ways to have that status of the visit. Is that correct? So it doesn't take away from the claim if, in fact, it's proven?
That's right. There are a couple of things going on here that are really fascinating. One, on the Ukraine side, you have a new, untested government that's really desperate to show that President Zelensky, he's a former TV star like President Trump. He doesn't have a lot of experience. He really wants the status and stature that goes with these meetings as he's coming into office. He also wants to show Russia, look, we have the U.S. on our side. They are firmly committed to us. You also have a lot of the national security staff within the White House and the State Department who are really pressing for a meeting because in the run-up to the election, they had backed Zelensky's opponent, the incumbent president. So they wanted the meeting also to sort of patch things up with the Ukrainians. The problem, of course, was that they were running up against Rudy Giuliani, who was pretty explicit about what he wanted, this quid pro quo for that meeting.
So you also mentioned another potentially important point, and that is the extent to which this is attributable or was attributed to President Trump as opposed to people around him, particularly Rudy Giuliani, who was acting as his personal lawyer.
Right. And this is one of the big questions that has dogged this entire impeachment inquiry, which is how much of this was Rudy Giuliani acting on his own and how much of it was him passing along messages from the president. People I've spoken to, and when you read the transcripts, it seems pretty clear. The information flow, Rudy Giuliani often was not passing information from the president. He was acting unilaterally. So when he's negotiating over what the Ukrainians could potentially say to unlock a meeting, there's no evidence in any of these transcripts that he's relaying some demand from the president himself. There is some evidence to suggest that he's doing this entirely on his own. So we're still trying to get to a sense for how much the president himself really was specifically pushing for this quid pro quo. But certainly just folks like Kurt Volker and others who have testified had no knowledge that the president was doing so.
Thus far, as I said, we've been reading transcripts. We've been seeing some documents, things like that. Next week, that looks like it's going to change. We're going to actually be able to see people because they're going to be appearing in public, particularly Bill Taylor, whose testimony seems to be very important, at least from the House Democrats' point of view.
That's right. He's among the first who will appear in public hearings. Marie Yovanovitch, the U.S. ambassador, will also appear. So you're really going to see, in the flesh what they're doing and what they're saying. Bill Taylor, though, that one of the more interesting things about his testimony that was teased out by Republicans, actually, that toward the end of a more than 250-page transcript of his testimony, is that he never actually spoke to the president about this stuff, and a lot of this is information that he was getting through other officials, Kurt Volker and the U.S. ambassador to the EU. So you're really going to start to get a sense for how confident he was about the contours of that debate, just in terms of his body language. And there's going to be no doubt he'll come under some pretty withering questioning from Republicans who say he was relying on second and third-hand information to make his claims.
Okay, Nick, thank you so much for joining us as our foreign policy reporter, Nick Wadhams. And now we're going to turn to Carol Masser and Jason Kelly, who are back from sunny California. I can report that they're deeply suntanned, look very well rested.
We are not
very well
David
rested.
Weston.
Exactly. But you have yet another special program. What, you can't get enough special programs for you guys?
We can't do enough. It's the Year Ahead Summit today here at Bloomberg World Headquarters.
I call it the CEO Palooza.
Yeah, I mean, we've got our chairman, Peter Grauer, who's like wandering by. You never know who you're going to see here on the set.
Carol, book him.
I actually started my day with Peter Grauer. We were at a breakfast this morning talking about women on board.
Dropping names.
Again, as always.
Exactly.
It was, but I did say to Carol afterwards, it was probably the best fireside chat interaction between four people that I've ever seen in my life. There was Pat Russo, Meg Whitman, and Maggie Wilderotter. And they were talking, Carol was navigating everybody through the HP demise, the split into two companies, what they did from a governance point of view, how they attracted people of color and underrepresented group, other women to the board. It was phenomenal.
Well, and a timely conversation for sure, because
we
did
kick it off about asking about the Xerox takeover
HP merger.
HP.
Yeah, potentially. So we're going to hear some of that conversation later on as part of what we're doing. We had some other conversations upstairs. David, Jim Coulter, the co-CEO of TPG, he laid out his vision for 2020. Yes.
I cut him off all the time. I drive him crazy. David Simon of Simon Properties and also Jeff Gannett of Macy's, the CEO, they talked about, we asked them, is the mall dead? And so we got into what works, what doesn't. And they were, a really revealing conversation.
Well, don't keep me in suspense. Is the mall dead? What's the answer?
No, actually, the audience polled and said no. We expect the mall to be around.
We did have a little fun with it, though, because we put a poll up that said, what are mall? The choices were, what's a mall? Malls are mostly dead. Malls are very much alive, and malls forever.
And where's your teenage kid?
Well, exactly. That's exactly right. Although increasingly younger people headed to malls, in part because they're not shopping anymore. They're, doing all sorts of experiential stuff. I also, going back to sort of your previous world, David Weston, sat down with Jonathan Nelson. He's the CEO of Providence. Of course, as you know, we talked a lot about the streaming wars.
Very successful in media. Providence has been. And he's very astute. He's very smart.
And, excuse me. And so we talked a lot about what's going on because the cover of Bloomberg Business Week this week it's all about Bob Iger.
Yeah. Right, and how this might be the streaming wars, and their streaming specifically might be his legacy.
Fairly intimidating picture of Bob Iger, by the way, I must say. That photo, I wonder if he knew he was posing that way.
It feels like, the sort of face, I don't know, maybe you've seen that face before when you didn't deliver
exactly. That's a face Bob doesn't always show the world, but there are people who have seen it.
Can I just say we're going to go out on a high, because I'm going to catch up with the Curaleaf CEO and talk about medical marijuana, recreational marijuana.
Oh, I see. High. I was going to say, it sounds all high to me, but now I see that's very, you guys are so sophisticated. You are so good at this. Okay, many thanks to Carol Massar and Jason Keller. They're coming up on Bloomberg Business Week. In the meantime, that does it for today for Balance of Power. Thank you so much for joining us, and we are on Bloomberg Radio.
It's another Thursday evening, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick to enjoy a warm Bayesian welcome.
How are you doing? Enjoying the sunshine?
Fly from London Gatwick to Barbados with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £699 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun with British Airways. Incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Whether you're waiting for a train or a takeaway, with Tesco Mobile you don't have to wait for a brilliant deal. Our best ever Black Friday event is on. This week you can get a Samsung Galaxy A50 for just $17.49 a month. That's our lowest ever price. Get yours by the 10th of November. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £18.99, now £17.49. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Some days life can get in the way of catching up on the news that moves your world. TuneIn is here to help. With live 24/7 coverage from CNN wherever you go on the TuneIn app, you can always find a slice of your schedule, however long, to check in on the biggest stories of the day.
Hell hath no fury. The president's counselor went on a rampage on a taped phone call with Washington Examiner reporter.
Search CNN on TuneIn to get the live news when it matters most. Stuck in traffic during the big game? With TuneIn Premium, you can listen to your favorite NFL team on the go. No TV required. Even during rush hour, you won't miss a single touchdown. Listen to the NFL on TuneIn Premium today.
Hey NFL fans, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you have unlimited access to every team and every game in the league. Listen live as it happens or on demand. Anytime, anywhere. All season long. Search NFL today.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Rachel Martin with David Green, and this is Up First from NPR News.
And it's defined like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
Of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
There's all this money coming in and people were so excited, but it's all this money with no place to go.
Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine.
The cannabis story, we've seen those stocks continue to move around.
It's all about that sexy bombshell look.
Plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens.
The question is when sort of a list of bad news starts getting to be a reason to question purchasing a new couch.
Money's free, let's do this. Let's do this deal. This is amazing.
Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Massar and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Live from Bloomberg headquarters from the New Year Ahead Summit.
The New Year Ahead Summit.
I wanted to say New York because we are in New York.
If it's Thursday, it must be New York. We're back home.
Trying to remember where I'm supposed to be.
Sort of. We're not in our home studio. We're at the big CEO event.
We're at the Link here at Bloomberg headquarters. Carol Massar along with my co-host Jason Kelly. We're going to talk about the markets because we have seen them go up, but we've got an incredible lineup of pretty much a who's who of corporate America as well as the financial world.
Yeah, you want to know what's going to happen in private equity, media, weed, whatever you're looking for, we got it here. Let's get downstairs, though, to Charlie Pellet. He's got an update on the trading day. Hey, Charlie.
All right, well, hello there. Welcome back. Big warm welcome back to the two of you, flying all over the country, covering all sorts of topics for us. Here's what's going on. We have got the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ rallying to records right here, all about China trade optimism today, with the S&P up 14 at 3,091. That is a gain of 0.5%. Dow Industrials up 240, up 0.9%. NASDAQ up 53. That is a gain there of 0.6%. Risk on rally today, the 10-year. Right now down a point, the yield 1.93%. Gold tumbling 1.7%, now at $14.64 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 2.2%, 57.57 a barrel. Brent 62.62, up by 1.4%. So again, all about trade today, with the S&P rallying 15 to a record, up 0.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. We're live at the Year Ahead Summit upstairs from where we normally are. Carol Masser in the mix. People milling around, as you say, on the link just upstairs from us. We were hanging out there earlier. You're going to be there a little bit later on. But as you said, just a murderer's row, as it were, of CEOs. You know, we heard from Jim Coulter, the co-CEO of TPG. He gave us a taste, pretty big taste actually, of what he told his investors a few weeks ago about the year ahead. It's all about the age of and.
Age of and. Okay, I'm looking forward to that. That's a good tease there. Macy's CEO Jeff Gannett, along with the CEO of Simon Property Group, David Simon, also caught up with us. You and I sat down at the year ahead with those two individuals to talk about. We asked the question, are malls dead? And you might be surprised by some of the answers we got.
Right, and we even polled the audience. They had some interesting feedback as well. Also, Jonathan Nelson, in this age of streaming, he's one of the most influential investors in the media world, talking about, in some ways, the cover story, which we're also going to get into. It's all about Bob Iger and Disney+.
And Disney does report their earnings after the close. Let's not forget, also in the news, HP confirming that, yep, they did get a takeover offer from Xerox. I caught up with the former chairman and CEO of Hewlett-Packard, former CEO of HPE, Meg Whitman, so she weighs in on that as well. Whew, I'm exhausted.
All right, let's set the Business Week agenda now. Joe Weisenthal, markets editor for Bloomberg and the co-host of What You Miss. That's coming up at 4 p.m. Wall Street time on BTV. And Dave Wilson, stocks editor, author of The Chart and the Stock of the Day, both here with us on the link. Everybody buzzing around. So, Dave, I want to start with you. What's the one thing that's top of mind on a pretty busy day?
Just how much the internet is changing business and changing itself, arguably. And I say that because you got a couple of areas of focus today. One is media. I mean, you've got news, Fox, the old networks there, higher after their results. You've got Discovery also up, and they're moving more of their programming online. And on the other hand, you have Roku, which has fallen something like 12%. The best performer in the Russell 1000 index this year. I mean, people have been expecting this company to be a beneficiary as increasingly people get their programming from streaming rather than, cable systems or whatever. And it just hasn't happened so much, at least according to the folks at RBC. So that's one piece. But the other piece of it is what's going on with the online travel business. You had results out late yesterday from Expedia and TripAdvisor. Both those stocks down more than 20%. And why is it happening? Well, with Expedia, the vacation rental business isn't looking so good, but there's the bigger issue of competition from Google. Right. I mean, they're consolidating their travel offerings. They've got the search service to kind of steer people into them to some extent at least. So when you put it all together, that business is changing, and the existing players, you might say, in the travel industry are definitely suffering the consequences based on the third quarter results.
All right, Dave, thank you. Joe Weisenthal, your turn. What do you think that investors need to know on this Thursday?
Just the big sell-off in safe haven assets. Look at gold. Look at treasuries. Look at silver getting absolutely clobbered. It's interesting because, stocks are up, but, not unusually so particularly. But obviously there's still tension out there, as evidenced by the bid in some of these assets that's melting away on some of these trade headlines and so forth. And so when you see stuff like it's more likely that tariffs are going to get rolled back as part of the phase one, and you see those bids for safe haven assets melt away, it's clearly not all priced in, at least not all parts of the market. 10-year yields up to the highest level since the summer, curve re-steepening. The safe haven bid really is dissipating. And to me, that's the story of the day.
Right, and around the world,
around the world,
sovereign bonds around the world go down.
There are actually more and more positive yielding debt. Remember that?
No.
Debt used to pay something back in the old days.
Hold on, so you borrow what?
People used to have to pay to borrow money, but maybe that
I just got
area
into the negative yielding environment.
Yeah, now
and
it's
what
changing
happened?
again.
Darn.
Shoots.
What's one thing you think everybody needs to know about?
I am going to echo Dave or go sort of to one of the points he made, which is media. I mean, I think this is arguably, and Jonathan Nelson, we're going to hear from him a little bit later. I mean, he essentially said this is the biggest week in media that we've seen and in a long time. And he basically said every decade there's an inflection point. This is this inflection point. I mean, it's happening. And I think you're going to see winners and losers, and you're going to see some winners and losers pretty quickly in terms of streaming and business models and who's going to win. And he answered that question a little bit. We'll bring you that a little bit later.
Okay, that's pretty good stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What are you looking at?
I don't know what I'm looking at. I saw the Luke Howa story that talked about safe haven assets too, and I thought that was really important. Yeah. I'm just going to say, I started my day. It was an event that recognizes companies that have increased diversity on their boards, and it was just, we've made a lot of progress, and we still have a long way to go. But it's interesting having some conversations here at Bloomberg with the Year Ahead Summit. People are talking increasingly, and I talked about this with Meg Whitman, about corporate responsibility, not just to shareholders, echoing the Business Roundtable, but to society at large. And that is something that I feel like is picking up momentum.
And we're going to hear more about that from Jim Coulter, because that is sort of the age of Ann, talking about governance.
See? I did not know that.
See?
I was busy doing other stuff.
Right into it. So,
amazing how that works out.
All right. So, gentlemen, we're going to let you get back to it. Joe Weisenthal, markets editor for Bloomberg, co-host of What'd You Miss? He's headed to do that at 4 p.m. Wall Street time. Dave Wilson, you'll be back with us throughout the show. In fact, you're going to be in Carol's place for Movers and Shakers. So we're going to be moving and shaking like you've never seen while you're up, doing whatever you're doing.
God, just that image. Wow. I got to get that out of my head. Okay. It is time for the Bloomberg Market Spite of the Day, one number that tells us a lot. Today's number is $5,000. Thank God my daughter is out of this phase. Just in time for the holidays, American Girl is selling the American Girl Holiday Collector Doll, sparkling with Swarovski crystals, at a price of $5,000.
Yeah, American Girl. It's owned by Mattel, teamed up with I don't know.
I know. Swarovski. What is it? Swarovski. Oh, did I say it wrong?
You did. To create the holiday doll and to decorate the windows of its flagship stores in New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles. The winter window displays will feature a 350 strand of crystal and 130 pounds of crystal dust.
What is crystal dust?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Anyway, interesting. Like I said, I'm glad my daughter is out of that phase.
I'm glad my daughter is a little ahead of that phase. So by the time she's
just
of American Girl age, yeah, I know.
All right. Listen, coming up, like we said, we've just got an amazing lineup, and you'll really get a feel of what's going on in the investment environment as well as corporate America. So don't go anywhere. More from the Year Ahead Summit here at Bloomberg headquarters in New York.
Let's get a check on world and national news now. For that, we go downstairs to the newsroom and Bob Moon. Hi, Bob.
Jason, thank you. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton failed to show up for an interview with impeachment investigators today, making it unlikely he will provide any testimony to the House about President Trump's handling of Ukraine. An attorney for Bolton said his client had not received a subpoena. The lawyer had previously said Bolton wouldn't appear without one. A House Intelligence Committee official said the panel has no interest in engaging in a drawn-out court fight over a subpoena for Bolton and will simply add the White House's instructions against testifying as evidence of the president's obstruction of Congress. He insulted the Speaker of the House. Today, he doubled down. Republican Senator John Kennedy, who called Nancy Pelosi dumb at a rally with President Trump in Louisiana last night, is standing by his remarks.
I didn't mean him as disrespectful. I didn't mean him as disrespectful at all. If people think they're disrespectful, this is America. You're entitled to your opinion.
Kennedy calls Pelosi the prime principal behind the impeachment inquiry against the president. After officially filing President Trump's name on the New Hampshire Republican primary ballot, Mike Pence took some serious questions from reporters today. They asked the vice president about soon-to-be-published anonymous tell-all author who claims to know the goings-on at the White House. The VP had this reaction.
If there's someone in our administration or served in our administration that doesn't support this president, doesn't support his agenda, they should do the honorable thing and resign.
Pence called the very notion of the book being written by an anonymous aide appalling. Global News, 24 hours a day, on air, and at TikTok on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Bob Moon.
You don't usually find the titans of finance, business, and politics sitting around together.
There's been this transfer of royal power and royal prerogative.
But amazingly, they're nearly all here every weekday.
Let's talk about their data. What are you looking for?
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow.
So where does the circuit breaker come from?
Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern.
He's got to respond, doesn't he?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
It's another Thursday evening, yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick. Reach the top of Mount Teede or relax on a sandy beach. Fly from London Gatwick to Tenerife with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £349 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
In cinemas November 15.
So you're going to build a car to beat Ferrari?
With a Ford. Correct. Get ready for Le Mans 66.
I hate guys like us because we're different.
Starring Matt Damon and Christian Bale.
What are they doing? Making your car go faster. That's more like it!
Based on the incredible true story.
You got a plan? It's high risk.
Of Ford versus Ferrari.
No, I thought the whole point was to win the damned race.
Le Mans 66.
Hit it.
In cinemas and IMAX November 15.
The S in Audi S-Line stands for many things like sporty, stylish, streamlined, and now seductively priced. Like the new Audi A4 S-Line, which you can now have from £359 per month, £2,154 initial rental. Test drive one at your local Audi centre, but you'll have to be swift. The offer ends soon. Search Audi S-Line. Audi, Vorsprung durch Technik. With 48-month contract hire, 10,000 miles per annum, 18s and over, subject to status. Damage charges may apply. No ownership. Ordered by 31st of December 2019 from participating centres. Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.uk.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
Ladies and gents, may I introduce a magical number? 25! Oh yes, 25 UK millionaires guaranteed in this Friday's Euro Millions.
Euro Millions, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Hi, Susan. What's a Brew City Brew Bite?
It's Beer Munch.
Oh, all right, but what exactly is it?
It's Beer Munch.
Okay. But what about a Brew City Halloumi Fry?
It's Beer Munch.
And an onion straw?
It's Beer Munch.
Yeah, it's Beer Munch. Yes, so you keep saying. Hot, shareable snacks. They're delicious with a cold beer and friends. You'll find them in the freezer aisle. Brew City.
It's Beer Munch.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
At Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. A risk-on rally. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, they are trading at records. All about trade optimism this Thursday, with the S&P 500 index up 15 at 3,092, a gain there of 0.5%. Dow Jones Industrial Average up 256 points, up 0.9%. NASDAQ up 52, that is a gain of 0.6%. The 10-year yield 1.94%, gold down 1.7%, $14.65 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.8%, $57.35 a barrel. Recapping, stocks at a record, S&P up 16, up 0.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week live from the Year Ahead Summit, and earlier, it's an annual event. Now, Jim Coulter giving us a sense, he's the co-CEO of TPG, of what he told his investors to think about for 2020. He had some very specific themes. One of them is about corporate governance and the era of and. Check it out.
So this is one of the most important questions of the year ahead and probably the decade ahead. We have trillions of dollars of assets in these entities called corporations, and suddenly we're calling into question their purpose, what they should and can do. And the Business Roundtable came out in a much talked about idea of saying that shareholders are not the only thing, and in fact, not even the prime thing that people should be worrying about. And Jack Welch, I love this quote, the dumbest idea ever. He was kind of the leader of shareholder value, now gone the other way. And so we bear the risk of going guardrail to guardrail like we always do in business, Jason, where it was all profits, now it's all not profits. I think that we have to go through the same process that we just did in science over centuries, is we have to begin to live in an era of and. Of course you have to have profits or you can't sustain yourself. And of course you have to take care of your broader ecosystem. We just have to get our head around how to execute that. I've been fascinated by this debate because my entire career has been about governance in a world of and. So one of the things that really isn't understood, and there's so much that's not understood about private equity, is we are essentially at our core a governance system. And I have for 25 years been co-running one of the largest governance laboratories in the world. Hundreds of companies, hundreds of board seats through the most difficult times, CEO changes, IPOs, transactions of all sorts. We've got it right, we've got it wrong, but we've learned a ton. And our world has always been about and. Why? Because we're long-term investors, and it's been totally clear. Even Friedman would agree that over the long term, you have to take care of your customers or you're not going to survive. And our investors have a long time ago asked us to be at the forefront of ESG. So we report on ESG, we train our boards on ESG, and quite frankly, our business is a little more personal. And personally, I have always thought it's the right thing to run a business for And. It's just the right thing to do. So I've been fascinated as I've watched the rest of the market. So private equity is about 3% of the global equity capital markets. Now the other 97% of the market is coming our way into the world of And. And I had our teams think about this. It turns out there's a massive industry of governance talking about how corporations are supposed to conduct themselves, and you can do it all over the world. You can have scintillating things about board minutes. These are sessions taught by lawyers. In fact, a really interesting paper, and Jason, you should get this. It just came out a few weeks ago from Stanford's Rock Center for Corporate Governance. And stop for a second and read these quotes. These are people who are governance specialists. They've gone and looked at the field, and what they say is that the concepts are loosely defined and poorly understood. We do not have, after decades of research, an understanding of what makes an effective governance system. And we often misstate the idea of having a staggered board, not having a staggered board, splitting chairmanship. These are just structures. They are not good governance. It would be like saying that if you go on a football field with a formation that you're going to win the game. No, you have to actually play the game. They allow good governance. They are not good governance in themselves. So there's a fundamental break in our understanding of corporate governance at a time we're going to add additional complexity into it. So I'm beginning to speak about this for the first time. It's the first time I've spoke publicly about this because although I've been running the largest governance laboratory, one of the largest governance laboratories out there, we have never been asked to speak at any of those conferences. I think in finance, there is a place for the theoreticians and there's a place for the practical, and you have to balance the two. So let me give you a few comments on the world of And with the idea of a practitioner's viewpoint entering the discussion. So first of all, 4 things we have to fix: shareholder engagement, board dynamics, measurement, and attitude. Shareholder dynamics. Somehow there's become a crisis in shareholder involvement in governance. We understand that in a political system, if one person doesn't vote, maybe it doesn't change the system, but if everyone stops participating, the system is going to break down. That's what's happening in corporate governance. 2 things are happening. People are holding shares less, so they are treating their companies like things they're renting, not things they own. And we're seeing the growth of ETFs, which essentially feel a step farther from governance. And so we have a series of really outstanding companies that I respect much that are now having an increasing voice in governance. And so if you think about Vanguard, State Street, BlackRock running the ETF marketplace, this is $15 trillion of investment with 75 people responsible for the governance functions there. Now, why does that feel low to us? It feels low to us because we manage $60 billion of private equity, and we have 160 people on boards actually active in governance. Yes, it's a different model, but 400 times less capital investment. But I feel for State Street, Vanguard, and BlackRock because they're under massive pressure to decrease their costs. And at the end of the day, the people that invest in these ETFs have to decide whether they want good governance. One last thing about this governance structure. We went into LinkedIn and we found as many of the people at these robust institutions that are in the governance business. I think we found 25 or so of the leaders. And what we found is we couldn't find a single board that any of them had sat on. Boards have to change how they operate. I've been involved in hundreds of boards. I've sat on 42 major boards myself. And I think it's not that the people on corporate boards are wrong. It's that the boards themselves act the wrong ways.
And that is Jim Coulter. And I have to say, this is the 3rd year he has done this. Carol, he brought it.
Yeah.
And has some very specific thoughts. This is going to be a critical year for all of these issues. And I think it dovetails with what you were talking about this morning.
It's totally what we talked about in terms of diversity on boards. And you know, the folks that I talked to, Meg Whitman and her team when she was at HP and breaking up the company, it wasn't just about more women, it was more everything. And that's really important. So it's a big message. And I think companies are slowly but surely getting that message. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Coming up, we're going to find out the 50 companies to watch in 2020. That's coming up right here on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks remain sharply higher as U.S. trade tensions ease. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 250, the S&P 500 up 15, the Nasdaq Composite up 52. Coca-Cola is set to launch a new flavored seltzer brand. AHA will hit stores in March with 8 flavors, including 2 with caffeine. For LaCroix sparkling water maker National Beverage, AHA is oh no, it's down nearly 11%. Facebook's chief operating officer says her biggest current concern is the 2020 election. Sheryl Sandberg tells Bloomberg's the Year Ahead Summit next year will be a massive test. Facebook has faced sharp criticism after Russian actors manipulated voters in 2016. Discovery wants to take its programming beyond cable. The owner of networks, including TLC and HGTV, is thinking of putting its TV channels on a Hulu-like service that would be available to all U.S. consumers. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Join us in New York City on November 21st as Bloomberg Pursuits convenes the second annual The Year Ahead Luxury. Speakers include Jennifer Hyman, CEO Rent the Runway, Alessandro Bogliolo, CEO Tiffany & Company, Robert A.M. Stern, renowned architect. Supporting sponsor, Diamond Producers Association. Participating sponsor, St. Regis Hotels and Resorts. For more information, go to BloombergLive.com/TYA Luxury. Invitation code RADIO.
In-depth analysis.
It's another Thursday evening. Yet another cold day. So ditch the British winter and chase the sun across the globe with British Airways from London Gatwick and witness luscious scenery and calming waves. Fly from London Gatwick to St. Lucia with British Airways, with flights and 7 nights hotel from just £739 per person. Don't miss out. Book by November the 12th at ba.com/wintersun. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Booking fees and conditions may apply. Limited availability. Selected flights in March.
London, switch to Vodafone, the UK's best mobile network, and Be Unlimited, because the best phones deserve the best network and our new unlimited data plans. The future is exciting. Ready? Vodafone.
Max download speeds apply to unlimited data. Best network as voted by readers of trusted reviews. Terms at vodafone.co.uk/unlimited.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
All the way to the checkerboard.
This Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 1 LSU is taking on number 2 Alabama with a battle between LSU's quarterback Joe Burrow and Alabama's QB Tua Tagovailoa. Both are potential number 1 picks in the NFL Draft. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Cutting for the net. Scores! On the goal line, Marshawn scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
You can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
You're listening to TuneIn, where you can hear all the audio you love in one place. Live NFL games, the hottest music, breaking news, and podcasts. Push play and go about your day, only on TuneIn.
Pulled into the end zone, and he's yanked in by a lineman for the touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
Oh, it's gone! It's into the end zone! Seahawks win! Touchdown!
Today, hear the home and away call as the 4-5 Los Angeles Chargers visit the 4-4 Oakland Raiders at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
15-10, 5, touchdown Denver!
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The war of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in?
The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut it.
The sideline, the man bleeds for 3.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right
NBA today to start listening.
In the dictionary, a podcast is this: a digital audio file made available on the internet, typically as a series, of which new installments can be received by subscribers automatically. But on TuneIn, a podcast is this.
I'm Adam Grant, and this is Work Life, my podcast with Ted. I study how to make work not suck.
And it's defined like this.
Blackout is a suspense-filled thriller from Endeavor Audio and Q-Code.
From news, sports, to pop culture, comedy, and beyond. Define your own podcast possibilities on TuneIn.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Master along with Jason Kelly at Bloomberg headquarters in New York at the Year Ahead Summit. And Jason, we love talking to our Bloomberg Intelligence team, but I don't know if our audience knows that they track nearly 2,000 companies, and we're talking about all kinds of industries, really in-depth research. And so they put it to work for the Year Ahead Summit.
Right. We're going to talk to the man in charge of it all, David Dwyer. He's the Global Director of Research for BI. We're going to get to him in just a second. But first, let's get back downstairs to Charlie Pellet. He's got an update on that green day. What's up?
We are close to records. In fact, trading at records, close to the highs of the day right now for the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ. S&P is at 3,091, up 14. Yes, a record there of 0.5%. The Dow up 240, higher by 0.9. NASDAQ up 52 points, now a gain of 0.6%. Risk-on rally gripping global financial markets after U.S.-China trade talks showed signs of progress, sending stocks higher and sparking a rout in haven assets from gold to sovereign bonds. The 10-year, the yield there 1.93%, gold down 1.7%, 14.65 the ounce. So again, the S&P at 3,091, up 15, up 0.5. The Dow up 242, up 0.9. NASDAQ up by 0.6%. As for the overall market backdrop with trade, Neil Dudd is head of U.S. economic research at Renaissance Macro Research. He was our guest on Bloomberg Surveillance.
It's not like this recovery in equities is coming with, sort of significant euphoria among the investor class. I mean, you look at the conference board data in terms of retail sentiment around the equity markets. Most folks in that survey are still net bearish on equities. So, despite the rallies that we've seen, so I mean, I wouldn't say that this is like a overbought sort of situation here.
Shares of online travel agencies tumbled after Expedia and TripAdvisor reported results that missed expectations. Expedia plunging 26.2%. TripAdvisor lower now by 21%. Ralph Lauren higher after the apparel maker reported same-store sales growth across